All right, guys. I wanted to make this video. This is something that I think is important to think about when it comes to understanding that the same tools that you use to build yourself up oftentimes are the best tools to turn towards when you are trying to fix yourself. So a good example is this. If you take a power lifter who is very familiar with the squat, bench, and deadlift, and they are to experience an injury, let's just say a back injury. It is this same skill that they have used to build up their back and make it stronger, they can now use to recover much more easily than somebody who has no experience in squatting or deadlifting with a barbell. So for instance, if you have built your squat up, let's say you're a woman who's been squatting for, 2 years, 3 years, and you get up to where you're squatting over 200 pounds. And the 45-pound bar is nothing. You can rep out 95 pounds like it's nothing. When you have an injury in your back, you have now built this system of understanding a movement pattern mechanically, and your body is just so familiar with it that now you can turn to putting a wooden pole on your back and performing squats and doing really slow movements through a deadlift range and building up from the ground up again with these movements that your body has experienced being strong in. If you took somebody who had a back injury and you said, hey, I want you to get into powerlifting as a way to recover from this injury, I'm not saying it wouldn't work. It's just not going to be as reliable, as safe, as fast, as easy, as comfortable. It's going to be overwhelming to learn these movements while using them as rehabilitation tools. That's why so much physical therapy involves isolating an area through simple ranges of motion, non-complicated, non-compound movements. And to be honest, there's a lot of argument to say that that's not the best way to address a joint. I do like isolating it in a lot of ways, but let's take another example. Let's take somebody who's done yoga, has been practicing yoga once, twice, maybe 3 times a week for a couple years, a year, and they strain a calf. They now can do things like a simple downward dog, different warrior poses. You're creating tension through the area. You're familiar with these movements. You know how your body normally feels during them. That's the other thing. If somebody has never done a downward dog pose, they don't know what normal tension feels like down through the backside of their body, their hamstrings, their calves, how it feels in the front of your ankles, what you're supposed to do. So you're taking somebody, if they have no experience, and if you were to say, let's give you some yoga poses to fix this area, you're very limited in what poses or what styles of flows that person could even do when they're healthy, let alone when they're trying to figure out their injury. So when you build these strength and conditioning tools for your body, let's use that term vastly. I don't just mean literal heavy lifting. I mean anything that you can build up that works an area, that you use to prevent injuries, that you use to strengthen an area, mobilize an area, etc., etc. So much so that I even think massage is a skill that you learn and you get good at before you can use it easily as a tool to recover. I would imagine that is a large reason to do when they do studies on injury recovery. Massage isn't that proven. A lot of things are not that proven because I think these are skills you need to have and use when you need them, as opposed to just things you turn to when you quote unquote need them. Deep tissue massage is a very painful thing. If you were to take a lacrosse ball and start jamming it in around your sciatic nerve and flossing the tissue and extending your leg while stuff is jammed into spots, and you're taking this tool and you're pulling into areas in your shoulder girdle and you're finding all these trigger points, and it's honestly a bit overwhelming if you've never learned what it feels like and adapted to that feeling, or it just goes away. Your body gets used to it. You're not as sensitive to it. You're going to be more in tune to the nuanced difference when you are injured. If I took somebody and had them put, as much pressure and really dig in deep into their shoulder blade, into the, the area that usually carries a lot of tension all through the shoulder girdle, different spots, maybe out here, dead center on the inside of your shoulder blade, underneath the first rib. If you're pressing into those areas and you've never done it before, yeah, you can say, oh, well, my left shoulder's a little tweaked, so let's see how it feels on the left side and the right side. You might notice there's some difference, but if you take somebody who has used these tools as a way to prevent injury and just as a part of their normal weekly routine, every couple day routine, they now can turn to these things like using a lacrosse ball to relieve tension in the musculature around an injury or to, increase blood, whatever you're using it for. You will now have that skill and that tool will work better for you. So part of what you're doing when you're building a strength and conditioning routine or this system is you're building a system to fall back on when an injury occurs or when you need to fix yourself. The same way a dog will tweak something in their knee or their hip and you're like, oh shit, you're worried about like your dog and if they don't need surgery and they didn't literally separate something so severe that they'll never be able to put pressure on their foot without surgery, which is not typically the case, Typically the case is they can't walk on it for a few days. They slowly begin to add more pressure. These compound movements like a squat, like a deadlift. Not that you need to use a deadlift to rehab your back, but if you're even the yoga poses that have energy and tension traveling through more than just the direct injury, more this chain all throughout the body, maybe a full body of tension. That is an ideal for your body to systematically put as much strain as it can in the area it needs to address. And you can use these compound tools to recover an injury. A lot of people argue much better, but if you don't have that skill, if you come in here and you've never even done a bodyweight squat, that's going to be hard for you to start off with. Some men, a lot of men have trouble even just doing a normal bodyweight squat. They already experience weakness, pain, etc., trying to go through that range of, or just sheer inability. So, I know there's probably a couple more points I could make on this topic, but I just wanted to get you thinking of how a lot of these things that you think you need to start doing when you have an injury, I need to start stretching, or maybe I'll start doing this. Or you realize that when you're injured, I could never fathom the idea of doing a squat when my back is injured or a deadlift, right? But if you were stronger prior to injury, or you're still technically stronger after the injury than you would be if you didn't get strong in those areas before, if that makes sense, if you can follow that. But regardless, if you had gotten stronger before, you could fathom how somebody who's able to deadlift 600 pounds can rehabilitate their back deadlifting 135 pounds through a movement that they've probably safely done for 8 years. And that may sound outlandish, but if you were to look up some of the things that cause the most stress on your knees, some of the things to avoid knee injuries in the gym, one of the number one things you'll see, leg extensions. And what do most physical therapists do? They put you on a leg extension machine. That doesn't mean that it's distinctly dangerous and won't have benefit. What else are you going to do if you don't know how to do a squat? If you don't know how to perform these other movements? Of course, you're in the hands of professionals when you go to physical therapy. They know how to apply bands. They know how to put tension, pressure in the right area. They know how to use a safe amount of weight. They can talk you through it in a way that's going to be safe. But if you spend time during your strength and conditioning focusing on maintaining a healthy body and doing things that will be your safety net and your go-to and your Band-Aid or whatever you want to say, your rehab, you are going to be much better at recovering from injuries and tweaks, and you will have a system to fall back on. I think of it, it's kind of like you make a Swiss Army knife and you're sharpening your knife, and then boom, now you have to use it. It's kind of like that. You have this toolkit, and that's what these tools use. A lot of injuries are rehabilitated through the things that you have used to strengthen an area. That doesn't mean that if you injure yourself with deadlifts, that deadlifts are what you need to do to recover. I would probably figure out if it was just a freak thing, it happens, or if it was something you were doing in deadlifts incorrectly. Maybe now is the time to really take a minute to address deadlift technique, but it is much easier for you to recover via that method if you've already built up a foundational understanding. You've already spent time learning the mechanics and everything you would need to do. There are many more instances of this and stuff. I don't want to go on much further. I'm already past 10 minutes. I told myself that would be the time where I would pull the plug on this. So cool. Enjoy. Good talk.